a reminder that this webinar will be recorded so that we can post it on the Nanny website. So I will pass the presenter role now to Amy Parks.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. My name is Amy Parks, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in working with sex addiction and its impact on families and partners, including betrayal trauma. I am currently working with an amazing team here at Addo Recovery. I am a proud mother of 6 children, 2 sons and 4 daughters, and I feel very privileged to be joined here today with my 13-year-old son, Cannon. Cannon, if you could just take a minute and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Cannon Parks. I'm 13 years old, and I really love football, basketball, basically like all sports involving a ball. I guess skiing doesn't have a ball, but I love to ski and hang out with my friends. I'm good at playing the piano, and I've been able to play in Germany and recently New Zealand. One of the things that I'm passionate about is that I hate selfies, and like I have a goal never to take one. So
yeah, he says they're just lame, which I really love that goal because I don't like selfies either for a lot of reasons. One of which is the older one gets, the camera is not as kind. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with our discussion today. The topic of our webinar was largely inspired by research surrounding teens and pornography. Start out with a statistic: 93% of boys and 62% of girls were exposed to pornography before the age of 18. Cannon and I were discussing, he found it significant to highlight 62% of girls. A lot of times we associate pornography as being an issue with males, but 62% of girls is significant. And I think that's not just because he has 4 younger sisters. But what was most staggering to me about the statistics you can see on the screen is that among these kids, 75% reported their parents had never discussed internet pornography with them. I found that just incredible, 75%. Cannon, do you remember the first time that we ever talked about pornography?
Well, I don't really remember, like, when haven't we talked about it?
That's kind of true. That's one of the side effects of having a mom as a therapist, I guess. But really, I want you to try to remember, what is your earliest memory of us talking about pornography?
No, like, seriously, like, as early as I can remember, like, my mom has always talked about, like, our bodies being special and, like, bad pictures. Like, we'd walk into the gas station and we'd, like, see an inappropriate pictures, and we'd label them as bad pictures and, like, not looking at them. So as long as I can remember, we've always talked about it.
Do you remember, did we have, a sit-down formal meeting, or what are your recollections about those discussions?
Well, not really. I kind of like remember like going on walks where we would talk a lot about like our bodies and creation and stuff. And walking made it really easy and natural to talk about these things. And I remember going on drives, like getting a pop or like a treat and just driving, just like talking. And comfortable and actually fun to spend time alone and talk. And it's like still one of my favorite things to do. So.
It's true. It's driving and talking and listening to music and having meaningful conversations. So this could be a very loaded question for me, but Cannon, how often do we talk about pornography?
Oh my gosh. Well, like I would have to say daily, and sometimes if my mom comes home from work and is like really fired up from it, it can be like several times a day. But I'm also glad because talking about it makes you more comfortable to talk about it, and also it just like reminds your brain that it's bad, and so I'm grateful. But
I do have to admit, there are times you and Carter, my 15-year-old son, are like, Mom, okay, we know, all right, if it's one of those particular days, but So it's nice for me to hear you say you're glad that we have those talks often. How do you feel when we are having those conversations about pornography?
Well, like, to be honest, it feels totally comfortable because, like, when we've talked about it so much, like, it seems weird to me when kids are awkward about it because it, like, surrounds us every day, everywhere. It's like we live in this time of the world when it's all over the place, and so I think we should talk about it a lot more.
Okay. Good job, Canon. I'm going to ask you a hard question. Do you remember your first exposure to pornography? Where were you? What was the circumstance? Do you remember?
Well, I was at home, and I was only, like, 6 years old. I was playing a Star Wars game on the computer, and, like, a pop-up image opened, and so it just opened.
So you remember that pop-up opening. Do you remember how you felt? You were 6 years old. Do you remember how you felt?
Well, it was 8 years ago, but I can still remember how, like, sickish I felt inside, and even though it wasn't my fault, I felt bad because I knew how wrong it was, and yeah.
So you remember that sick feeling.
Yeah.
Do you remember, you're remembering the Star Wars game, you're remembering that sick feeling. Do you remember what you did?
Well, we had talked about it enough that my brother and I knew to turn off the computer and to tell my mom, so that's what I did.
It's interesting. I don't remember that first time that when you were 6 years old, but it is, as I work with addicts every day, they do really clearly remember their first exposure. Have you had other exposures to pornography? And, at 6 years old, you kind of had that sick feeling inside, but as you've gotten older, have you had other exposures, and have you had other types of feelings different than that sick feeling?
Well, actually, me and my friend were working on a project at school. It was 2 years ago in 6th grade, and so we were working on a project, and what I thought was kind of interesting is we needed an image, and so my friend misspelled a word by one letter, and just pornography came up, and my friend just slammed down the laptop, and so I felt that was good of him to do that. And I've also had an exposure at home where I was on the computer working on an English project, and I was looking at a picture, and it said, "Click here for full resolution," and so I clicked on it, and just a porn website came up. And then I've also had exposure at a family member's house. It's amazing how much it can come to you. Like, it's funny because even when you don't look for it, it, like, looks for you, and it can find you. And so we were just playing a game. I had, like, my cousins over and my sister. We were just playing a game, and we clicked on a website, and another image popped up, and so we just, like, ran out of the room, and yeah.
I do remember that one. That one was really recent, and our entire family was gathered at my mom's house, and all of a sudden we hear just the screaming, and Cannon came running out. I goes, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And so the response was appropriate. Do you remember how that exposure, and these recent exposures, like at school, at home, you're older now?
Yeah.
Do you remember how that made you feel? Have you had other types of feelings?
Well, to be honest, it, like, didn't, like, make me want to look at it more, but I also did feel more curious about it, and it made me have more questions about it. So
you say it made you feel more curious. More curious about what? Questions about what?
Well, one of the questions that I've always had is why would people want to look at those images, and who produces them, and why do they produce them? So since this time, I've learned a lot about the brain and also about how pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that is why people produce pornography, to get money and find that the meaning.
Yeah. How do you make sense of that when you learn this is a money-making business? That's why they're doing this.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Does that make you look at pornography differently?
Yes. Well, because you're pretty much selling it. You're making people like get addicted, and that's obviously not good.
Okay, so I won't go into any more about your exposures. I think you've confessed them all three. It's obvious we talk a lot about pornography at our home, but I think it would be interesting to hear from you, Cannon. Do you talk about pornography with your friends? Do you talk about it at school? Are teens talking to other teens about pornography? Are you guys talking about this stuff?
Well, I've only talked to my very, very best friends. In fact, like the other day, I was just shooting hoops with my best friend, and I was like, does your family ever talk about pornography? And he was like, yeah, because he has an iPhone, and so his mom is obviously starting to get a little bit worried, and so they're starting to come down on it, and so are all my other friends. Their parents have started coming down on it, and so.
So you've had conversations with your very best friends, and it sounds like you're talking to them, their parents. So have you talked about pornography, or just do your parents talk about it? Have you had conversations about what do you think about it?
Well, they all think it's wrong, and like in fact, yeah, they've all said that they've been exposed to it as well, and it's amazing how much it comes in. And so not last year, 2 years ago in sixth grade, we had the opportunity for like the NOVA program to come into our school.
Will you explain to them what the acronym NOVA means?
Well, it means nurturing opportunities, values, and accountability. And so like they would mostly talk about like drugs and like that, but then one day we started talking about pornography and how it's as addicting as those drugs that we were talking about. And I found it interesting but also sad how many more people look at pornography than do drugs, because it's so widely produced. And so the NOVA program challenged us to not use technology for a whole week, and it actually, like, the first day was kind of, like, rough, but then after...
Rough. That's ridiculous.
But after that, you just realize that you don't really need it.
Well, and not only that you don't need it, but I have found that when I have a big group of boys at my house, and you guys are making up games, playing night games, playing sports, shooting hoops, I hear you laughing so much more than when you're mindlessly gaming or each of you on your devices. The NOVA program, I remember how much you loved that program in the 6th grade. And I remember you coming home and talking about drug addiction and pornography addiction. I am curious how would you describe the difference of your exposures, or one who's had exposure to pornography, as we're saying 93% do, versus pornography addiction? What do you think the difference is, or is there a difference?
Well, I feel like that when you have an exposure, you're not looking for it. It just pops up or whatever, an ad but like the more you look at it, the more dopamine is released, and so more dopamine is released, then like your body starts to feel better and better, and so you look at it more. And so, like, the body starts to crave dopamine, like how you crave your Diet Coke, Mom.
Wow. Throwing me under the bus with the Diet Coke, but it is true.
But when someone gets, like, hooked on pornography, it is obvious how, like, pretty much hijacked their brain has become. They get angry, they don't want to do fun things, they ruin relationships. It's really scary the damage an addiction can do to a person and the people that they love.
Yeah, it's true, and I appreciate that, that you recognize that at 13 years old, how damaging it can be to relationships. Cannon, of everything that you have learned about pornography, its impact, pornography addiction, what do you feel is the most valuable information as a teen that can help you prevent you from seeking after it?
Well, I've seen pictures of, like, the brain before, like, excessive use of pornographic images and after, and I think that it's, like, amazing how much it affects your brain just from looking at a picture. It's really kind of scary, and I can't believe it. So one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about is I was reading a book called Good Pictures and Bad Pictures, and at the very end, there was this plan, and I just want to share it with you guys. And so it's called the Can-Do plan. And so, like, for C, it's like close your eyes, turn away, and hit the power button to shut down. Like, A, alert a trusted adult. So, like, for the two of those with C, the reason why you want to shut it down is because the people who put it on there could have, like, mouse-trapped it. And so no matter how many times you click on the exit or the back button, it won't exit, so you're forced to look at the screen more. And so, yeah, you always want to shut it down. Then alert and a trusted adult, you got to go talk to your parents, and even if they're not there, you want to, like, leave them a note, because even if you're not even comfortable to talk about it, like, leave them a note, and then your parents will find a time and place, like a comfortable time and place to like talk to you about it. And so N, I feel like this one is really important because it's name pornography when I see it. So if you see pornography and if you say that's pornography, your brain knows that it's wrong. And so it will really help you to not look at it because you know it's bad. D is to, like, distract my thoughts away from bad images. And so if you want to distract your thoughts, what I like to do is to jump on the tramp, shoot basketball, like shoot hoops, and because what I'm going to reflect back on, seconds count. The more you look at it, the more it's going to be stuck in your brain, and it'll be harder to get out. And so I think it takes half a second for dopamine to be released, so that's why it's really, like, I don't know, what's the word?
Addictive.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the O.
Order my thinking brain to be in charge. So then your, like, instinctive part of your brain will want you to look at it, but you know that it's wrong. So that's what you got to do.
So I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. I really love the book Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. The authors are Jensen and Pointer. They're on the slide. Cannon, if I could put you on the spot and have you maybe share how they describe the different parts of your brain, because it really made sense to you as you read it.
Okay. Well, they explained it like your thinking brain and your, like, instinctive brain. So your feeling brain. And so, like, the example that they used, if there was, like, an ice cream truck across the street, your instinctive brain, feeling brain, would be like, go get the ice cream right now, I'm hungry. But then your thinking brain would be like, look right and left for cars because you could be hit. And so, like, the way they explain it is really good. And so, like, when you see pornography, your thinking brain, like, gets less strong and your instinctive brain gets more strong, and so you'll want to look at it more. And the better choices that you make, your thinking brain gets stronger and you can take control of that more. And yeah, so I think that how they explained it was great.
Yeah, it was really a simple way that kids can understand and parents can understand in talking to their kids. I walked in just the other day, and Cannon's younger sister, who is 11, was just reading that book by herself. And I walked in, she said, "Mom, this is a really, really good book." So we like that book in our home. So, Cannon, do you have anything else that you want to share? Any other valuable information that you feel parents could use in talking with their teens?
I wouldn't, if they feel bad about it, I wouldn't, grind them so much. But, once you feel comfortable, I think you should start talking to them more and more about it, because it's becoming a bigger problem every day. And so I think that you should start talking about it the more they get comfortable. And, yeah.
Well, and I feel like it needs, they need to be open and the relationship needs to be comfortable to where you can talk about your body and changes in sexuality, and instead of just pornography, because all of those are connected. I would also like to, I know that as a family, we have the Fight the New Drug campaign. We have spent quite a bit of time watching their videos on their site, and my kids, they're very youth friendly, and you guys love their videos. We were watching one this morning, and my 5-year-old was saying, "Can we watch another one? Can we watch another one?" So yeah, they do a fantastic job of describing the effects that pornography has on the brain, and how it impacts families. And so, okay, so apparently we are having an issue with the slides. I apologize for that.
Slide's not changing.
The slide's not changing. Okay, so if we could open it up now, if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask, feel free.
How do they ask questions?
Okay, the name of the book. Someone is asking, what is the name of the book that you were referring to? Okay, the name of the book is Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Oh, do I not? I'm typing that in there too. The authors, I want to make sure I can cite those authors. Kristen A. Jensen and Gail Pointer. Just a fantastic book right there. The book explains the different parts of your brain. It describes addiction. It talks about having that can-do plan that Cannon mentioned. It's a good length, and it's simple to understand. Any other questions? Okay. You know, the interesting, someone is asking, is there a simple process for discussing why pornography is wrong, particularly to younger children? What I appreciate, that book that I'm referring to talks about the influence how it impacts your brain, but also, as Cannon talked about, he was 6 years old. This question is targeted for particularly young children. Cannon was 6, which is really young, and he had that sick feeling. Talking to them about the feelings that they have, assuring them that they didn't do anything wrong, and just opening up that communication, that would be the most important thing you could do. Talk about how they felt and how it impacts them. The name of the video you recommended. Someone asked, what is the name of the video you recommended? It's called Fight the New Drug. They have a campaign, and they have so much media on their site, Fight the New Drug, and it's very, very powerful. It's the teenagers, for my children, 15 down to 5, all have watched those videos. Okay, someone asks, what was the C in can do? Cannon, do you want to answer that?
So the C was like to close your eyes and to hit the power button to shut down instead of try to exit or press the back button, because when you do that, the people who put the pornography on the website could put mouse traps on it, so no matter how many times you click back or on the exit button, it will still stay there, and seconds count, so you want to be able to shut it off.
Yeah, the longer you see that image, the more that it's just seared into your brain and your memory. I appreciated Cannon's example at elementary school, which I thought that was, when he was talking about that, I have felt very comfortable with my children working on the school computers, not recognizing that is available at school. He said, that happened while they were doing a research project, and his friend that was with him misspelled one letter, and his response was perfect, how he shut the laptop instead of trying to click out of it. It drew attention to his teacher, but that was okay because he shared with the teacher what had happened during the research project. So I think it's important to note that it can happen anywhere. Most of the time it's at home, but at friends and school. Okay, so viewer 213, having sound issues again. Just go up and we can read that other question.
Yeah. Okay, so viewer 213, we're going to answer your question.
Okay, so 213 is asking, my son is already addicted, even though we have talked openly about it. He is 17, and it is very hard to treat. It's nearly impossible to stop, even though we have done therapy, wilderness, and watch his tech use. Is there any large movement to go against this industry? I have so much empathy for, I'm not sure, it doesn't specify if I'm talking to a mother or a father, but it is so, so, so difficult to watch your son or daughter engage in this addiction and see the impact that it has on their self-esteem and on how much it impacts their daily life. It is interesting. I have a client right now that has been in and out of drug rehab, and he has recovered from drugs, but he still is struggling with pornography. And he said he's used the hardest drugs, and he says this is so much harder to fight than my drug addiction. That is because it's what we call a process addiction. It is natural to have sexual feelings, and so, but I feel so hopeful because we see teens in recovery. We see so much recovery that when the person really wants to make change, it is the most beautiful thing to witness change occur. So that viewer with that question, it could be, that you've tried wilderness, you've tried all these, you've done everything that you can do, and it sounds like as parents, you feel like you can do everything you can do, and that's all you can do. But at some point, your son will be ready to change, and it's that readiness to change that makes all the difference. When their heart really wants to change. Sound issues again. Okay, viewer 244 says, how do you encourage your children to handle enticements from their peers who may be already viewing pornography? So it was interesting. There was a presenter that I was talking to yesterday, and she was a high school teacher, and she does work in this area as well. And she has an approach that I really liked. I introduced that to Canon. Most of the time, it seems like these kids are having their devices, whether that be their phone or their iPad, and they'll just be like, "Dude, check this out," and kind of throw that in their face. Her approach was to always say, "What is it?" So if they say, "Dude, look at this," by asking, "What is it?" they're less likely to say, "Oh, it's porn." They're more likely to be like, "Oh, it's nothing, it was stupid," and to put it away. So I liked that approach that she used, and I shared that with Canon. And do you feel like that's something that you would use?
For sure. Like, if you ask, they're not going to just say, "Oh, it's pornography." They're going to feel sheepish about it because you asked them what it is, and it just reminds them again.
The bad picture.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is a bad picture. So, Canon, I'm going to ask you, have you had that happen? Where somebody has just kind of thrown it in your face like that? They're asking, what do you do? Have you had that happen?
Well, I'm lucky that we live in Utah, because I haven't had that happen yet, but I'm pretty sure it will happen sometime in my life, probably in high school. So, yeah.
So you haven't had it happen yet.
Mm-mm.
Let me ask you, what will you do when that happens? Because you're right, at some point, maybe it's the degree of pornography, it might not be, but you're right, at some point that probably will most likely happen. What will be your plan?
Well, you were just talking about that high school teacher, about the what is it. That probably will be what I will do. Because obviously if they say, "Hey, dude, look at this," it could be anything, but just to be sure, you could say, "What is it?" And yeah,
Okay,
it'll
so
totally help.
let's say in this moment, Canon, in this moment, your friend says, "Oh, dude, look at this," and you say, "What is it?" It's like, "She is so hot. You have to look." Then what do? You say, "What is it?" He's saying what it is. What do you do then? What would you do? What have you done in other hard situations in the past?
Well, if you could, if you see it, then you could just, push it away, or, tell them that you don't look at that stuff, and if it's bad, then
so let's say you're like, "Dude, I don't look at that stuff."
Yeah, probably.
And then he's like, "Oh, that's so stupid. It's everybody looks at this stuff." What do you say?
Then you say, "Well, I know it's bad, so..."
How is it bad?
It seriously changes your brain. It alters your brain.
Okay, so now you're sounding confident in the moment. Like if somebody offers you drugs, I don't do that. Why? It's dumb. Everyone's doing it because I know how harmful it is, and I'm not going to take that into my body.
And I don't want to get addicted. So.
Okay, good job. Doing a little bit of future role playing. So are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions. So just wrapping up, I again appreciate those who were able to listen to the webinar, and appreciate my son being here and letting me put him on the spot, and for the information that he has delivered. Okay, one more question and then we'll be finished. Precursor to pornography talk. What is the right age to talk to your kids about sex, and any tips on how to do it? So I don't feel like there is a right age, a right way to talk about sex to your children, but I do find it's really important to follow their lead. As they ask questions, you give them answers, and they will ask at the time that they're ready to receive the answers. And so with my children, I have always tried to make everything very comfortable. So as their bodies have changed, when they were little, we used anatomically correct terms for parts of their body, and it wasn't embarrassing and shameful to talk about. They would talk about everything, and so as they had questions, they would ask me about questions, and it seemed like it was just such a natural progression of talking about sex as they had questions. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I am grateful for this opportunity I've had to be able to talk to you and talk to my son and have him talk to you about how teens are talking to one another about pornography addiction. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Cannon, for that webinar. Very, very, very helpful. Knowing the dangers of pornography and how to talk to your children about it. To wrap it up, I'd just like to let you all know about the Net Nanny loyalty program. The Net Nanny loyalty program, as you can see on this slide, is a program that we're doing right now. Right now we're testing it, and we'd like to encourage you to join. What you do is you get points for prizes by sharing blogs that are found on the Net Nanny website. To sign up, you go to www.netnanny.com/loyalty, and there is the sign up, and then there's the official rules. I would encourage you to read those official rules and share and earn points for prizes such as Amazon gift cards and other Net Nanny products. If you have any questions about it, you can contact me at ngruenwald@contentwatch.com. I'd also like to mention that these webinars will be posted online at www.netnanny.com/webinars. This webinar will be posted in a few days, along with all the other webinars that we've done up to this point. Also on the Net Nanny website are booklets and other resources that are free that you can access to better help you protect your children and your family from things that can be found on the internet. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar. We appreciate your questions, and we apologize for the audio problems that we've had. But we thank you for sticking around and listening in on this webinar, and we invite you to participate in future webinars. Thank you very much.